The Trojan War was a war between the Greeks and the people of Troy. The strife began after the Trojan prince Paris abducted Helen, the wife of Menelaus of Sparta. When Menelaus demanded her return, the Trojans refused. Menelaus then persuaded his brother Agamemnon to lead an army against Troy. The troop ships gathered, led by the greatest Greek heroes, Achilles, Patroclus, Diomedes, Odysseus, Nestor, and the two warriors named Ajax. In order to win favorable winds for the journey, Agamemnon sacrificed his daughter. The winds came, and the fleet set sail for Troy. For 9 years the Greeks ravaged Troy's surrounding cities and countryside, but the city itself, well fortified and commanded by Hector and other sons of the royal household, held out. Finally, the Greeks built a large, hollow, wooden horse in which a small group of warriors were concealed. The other Greeks appeared to sail for home, leaving behind only the horse and Sinon, who deceitfully persuaded the Trojans to take the horse within the city walls. At night the Greeks returned. Their companions crept out of the horse and opened the city gates, and Troy was destroyed. The gods took great interest in the war. Poseidon, Hera, and Athena aided the Greeks, while Aphrodite and Ares favored the Trojans. Zeus and Apollo, although frequently involved in the action of the war, remained impartial. Antigone was the daughter born of the unwittingly incestuous union of Oedipus and his mother Jocasta. After her father blinded himself upon discovering that Jocasta was his mother, and that also unwittingly he had slain his father, Antigone and her sister Ismene served as Oedipus's guides, following him from Thebes into exile until his death near Athens. Returning to Thebes, they attempted to reconcile their quarreling brothers, Eteocles, who was defending the city and his crown, and Polynices, who was attacking Thebes. Both brothers, however, were killed, and their uncle Creon became king. After performing an elaborate funeral service for Eteocles, he forbade the removal of the corpse of Polynices, condemning it to lie unburied, declaring him to have been a traitor. Antigone, moved by love for her brother, and convinced of the injustice of the command, buried Polynices secretly. For that she was ordered by Creon to be put into a cave, where she hung herself. Her beloved Haemon, son of Creon, committed suicide. Oedipus was the child of Laius and Jocasta, the ruling couple of Thebes. Eager for future knowledge, Laius journeyed to the oracle at Delphi, who gave him the most unwelcome news that his newborn son would grow up to kill his father and marry his mother. Disturbed by this, Laius gave his new son to a herdsman and ordered him to be killed. He was left on the side of a mountain. However, destiny cannot be avoided that easily, and Oedipus survived. He was rescued and then soon after adopted. His adoptive parents raised him as their own. Years later, Oedipus traveled to the oracle at Delphi to ask her if they were really his parents. The oracle, however, did not tell Oedipus who his parents were, but instead revealed the disturbing prophecy that he would couple with his mother and kill his father. Resolving that this should never come to pass, Oedipus did not travel back to where he came from, to those that he believed to be his parents, but rather headed for Thebes. On his journey, Oedipus came to a crossroads, and was faced with a carriage driving the opposite direction. The driver struck Oedipus to get him to move out of the way. This made Oedipus mad, and he killed the driver and the men he was transporting, King Laius. Having unwittingly fulfilled half the prophecy, Oedipus carried on to Thebes. The Sphinx had been sent by the gods to terrorize Thebes. This fiend would ask any passing traveler her riddle, and if they were unable to answer correctly, she would devour them. No man had been able to guess the answer, but when Oedipus came to Thebes, the Sphinx asked him her riddle, and he was able to solve it. The story goes that she went mad and threw herself off a cliff, thus freeing Thebes from her fearsome influence. The people of Thebes were so grateful to Oedipus that they proclaimed him their king, and since Laius had been mysteriously killed, they also suggested that he marry his widow, Jocasta, to solidify his position as ruler of the city. Thus the prophecy of the Delphic oracle came to pass. Many years later, it is found out that Oedipus is the one who killed Laius, and also that he is Laius' son, and that he married his own mother. Jocasta, his mother and wife, hangs herself upon finding this out, and Oedipus gouges his eyes out. He is then exiled from Thebes. King Agamemnon returns home victorious from the Trojan War, but is then murdered by his wife Clytemnestra and her lover Aegisthus. Agamemnon's children, Electra and Orestes, plan to get revenge on their father's murderers. Orestes slays Agathos and then kills Clytemnestra reluctantly at the god Apollo's bidding. Orestes' attempts at self-justification then falter, and he flees, guilt-racked, maddened, and pursued by the female incarnations of his mother's curse, the Furies. Orestes takes sanctuary from the Furies at the shrine of Apollo at Delphi. At the command of the Delphic oracle, Orestes journeys to Athens to stand trial for his crimes. There the goddess Athena organizes a trial with a jury of citizens. The Furies are his accusers, Apollo his advocate. The jury is evenly divided in its vote, and Athena casts the tie-breaking vote for Orestes' acquittal. The Furies then turn their vengeful resentment against the city itself, but Athena persuades them in return for a home and cult to bless Athens instead and reside there as kind goddesses.
He was the god of fertility and wine, later considered a patron of the arts. He invented wine and spread the art of tending grapes. He has a dual nature, on the one hand bringing joy and divine ecstasy, on the other brutal, unthinking rage, thus reflecting both sides of wine's nature. If he chooses, Dionysus can drive a man mad. No normal fetters can hold him or his followers. Dionysus is the son of Zeus and Semele. He is the only god to have a mortal parent. Dionysus was a handsome young man with impressive hair, usually tresses falling below his shoulders, and a wreath of ivy on his head. In his hand he was holding a thyrsos, which was a light staff wrapped with leaves and ivy and a pine cone on its top. Leda and the Swan is a story and subject in art from Greek mythology in which the god Zeus, in the form of a swan, seduces or rapes Leda. According to later Greek mythology, Leda bore Helen and Polydeuces, children of Zeus, while at the same time bearing Castor and Clytemnestra, children of her husband Tyndareus, the king of Sparta. In the W.B. Yeats version, it is subtly suggested that Clytemnestra, although being the daughter of Tyndareus, has somehow been traumatized by what the swan has done to her mother. According to many versions of the story, Zeus took the form of a swan and raped or seduced Leda on the same night she slept with her husband, King Tyndareus. In some versions, she laid 2 eggs from which the children hatched. In other versions, Helen is a daughter of Nemesis, the goddess who personified the disaster that awaited those suffering from the pride of hubris.
Pandora. The first woman, Pandora, was presented to man as a double-edged sword. She came from the forge of Hephaestus, and was given traits by both Athena and Zeus. Zeus gave her as a bride to Prometheus' brother, Epimetheus. Zeus also gave Epimetheus a box with a warning never to open it. One day, curiosity overcame Pandora, and she opened the box. In doing so, she unleashed all of the evils now known to man, and at the bottom of the box, the last to come out, was hope. Odysseus, or Ulysses. Odysseus was the king of Ithaca, husband of Penelope and father of Telemachus. Odysseus fought for 10 years in the Trojan War and came up with the idea of the wooden horse. However, when he incurred the wrath of Poseidon, he was forced into a decade-long journey home at the end of the Trojan War, depicted in the Odyssey.
The old satyr Silenus had been drinking wine and wandered away drunk, later to be found by some peasants who carried him to their king, Midas. King Midas recognized him and treated him hospitably, entertaining him for 10 days. On the 11th day, he brought Silenus back to Dionysus and Lydia. Dionysus offered Midas the reward of his choice. Midas asked that whatever he touched should turn to gold. When Midas started to recognize his food and drink would turn to gold as well, he understood that this gift was a curse. He then begged Dionysus for deliverance from starvation, who told him to wash in the river of Pactolus. Then whatever he put into the water would be reversed with a touch.